I always have this philosophy of starting from somewhere.
Of all things, right, you have front-end development, you have product design, you have data science, you have cybersecurity, you have animation, 3D, and all of that. Why did you pick back-end development?
Do when something is your thing, they wake you up.
Yeah.
You can start.
Right,
You
yeah.
can literally just start at it. So that's how it became my thing. So it was easy to be true to it because it was my thing.
If I am to act like a philosopher, right, I would say this, that every single thing you do in life, right, contributes to the success.
Yeah, I always want something to do. I'm always looking to fill up my idle time. I'm not man of this year. Every year is my year. Every year is my year.
He's an Igbo man. And you know what they say about Igbo people? They are very, very resourceful. This young man sells gadgets, he sells cars, but most importantly, he's a back-end developer. How can someone be an entrepreneur and also be a talent? This is a most profound, way of living, right? And I believe that in this podcast, we're going to be able to demystify and see how Joshua Nnamani is able to do all of this, right? Be an entrepreneur and also being a talent. Joshua Nnamani, it's great to have you in this podcast.
I think the honor is very much all mine. I was very surprised when you had invited me here.
Yeah.
The honor is all mine. I'm thankful for being here.
Thank you for honoring the invitation. Yeah. So a quick one, right? Joshua, can you just introduce yourself?
Okay, this is my full name. He missed the middle name because he doesn't know how to pronounce it properly. So my name is Joshua Nnamani. I hail from the eastern part of Nigeria, but I was born and bred in Kaduna, full-born Kaduna boy. There's nothing so much about me. I think Nigeria just pushes us to the point where you have to survive. So I have been surviving on the things I've loved or I like. That is gadgets and cars. I like cars a lot. Sometimes a little bit more than women, but I like cars and I like my women.
Okay.
So I've basically that's what I've been doing: selling cars, selling gadgets, and writing backend code. Yeah.
Interesting. So a quick question: which did you start first?
I started with selling gadgets.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I started in my 300, 400 level. I remember my first ever transaction. So I always want something to do. I'm always looking to fill up my idle time. So I wanted to be part of my family business, but my mom was like, "You're too young, you're too young. It's not your time, it's not your time." But there was so much time for me. Like there was school, there was the ASU strike, there was just a little wandering in idleness. So I started posting gadgets. I started going to the well-known McAfee Plaza in Kaduna. Everybody that's lived in Kaduna knows McAfee Plaza. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I started going to McAfee Plaza. I started networking. So one time, an old friend of mine, we were rocking heads together in primary down to junior secondary. He would take first, I'll take second. So he texted me, "I need an iPhone 6." And it was all the way down to Akwa Ibom. It was all the way down in Akwa Ibom. He was like, "I need an iPhone 6. Give me an iPhone 6, but I'll only send you the money when I receive the phone. It's for a friend." So I went to Plaza and I met one of the guys that has a shop there, and I usually just stay at his place. And I was like, "Guy, I need an iPhone 6, but I don't have the money." So he was like, "How do we do it? I can't give you a phone. This is your first transaction. We've not built trust." So I gave him my computer and collected an iPhone 6. All on trust, all on trusting my friend to meet up to his own end of the bargain. So I gave him my computer, collected the iPhone 6, took the iPhone 6 to Akwa Ibom Transport Company. I met the manager there, first time meeting the manager, and I explained to him, I was like, "Boss, this is my first transaction. But the client is asking that the phone comes, then he pays. Can we do the transaction in your office down in Akwa Ibom?" And the manager was like, "Who is this nigga? Who is this small boy?" He was like, "Okay, I would help out. So I'll speak to the driver. The driver would give him the phone. He checks the phone, then he pays you there." So the transaction was going to happen within the vicinity. So we agreed. I gave him the phone. He left. I gave him the phone. I left. He sent it the next day. It happened as planned. I got my money. I made, I think, 6 or 7 thousand out of it. That was first transport. That was my first profit.
What year was this?
I think 2017, 2018.
Okay, because I know
Yeah.
7K might not buy you your lunch this time around.
Yeah. Oh, it was a
Great.
lot too. It was a lot. I had a girlfriend then, so we ate like 4, 5K inside.
Okay, interesting, interesting. I think from what you just said, one of the things I can easily pick out is that you take risk,
Yes.
right? Okay, good. Yeah. So that just basically explains how you got into the business of um, selling gadgets, and just to keep our fans and listeners up to speed. The design for this podcast is to demystify tech and creativity for Africans, right? And your story is so unique, right? From selling gadgets to selling laptops. From selling gadgets to selling cars, down to being a backend developer. So when did you start selling cars?
Um, ah, I've always been involved in car transactions. So I liked cars.
Hmm.
Like I really do like cars. Like I remember I would sit with a friend probably by the roadside and cars would pass and I'll say this is 2007 Camry. Another one will pass, I'll be like, this pass at CC. She was like, how do you know the year? And funny enough, thinking back at that particular event, I really didn't research about cars. I can literally just look at the car and I'll tell you the range.
Mm-hmm.
Like this cannot be more than 2008. She'd be like, how do you know these things? I'm like, I don't know. It's something I love. So it's just it's just
Interesting.
I love these machines. I love how they look. I love how they move. I love the ease they give
Mm,
humanity.
interesting.
Yeah. So I think I started selling cars. I think after I left my job I think I started selling cars 2021. Yeah.
Okay.
I started selling cars 2021, like fully, like immersed myself in the market, got to
Mm.
know people. At that point, I was even looking at shipping my first 2014 Corolla auctioned, no clean title, though people that sell cars will know that. I was looking
Okay.
at shipping my first 2014 Corolla and they scammed me. Yeah. We move, nonetheless.
Okay. Okay. We won't dig deep into that yet.
Yeah.
Right. So when did you now get into becoming a backend developer? Of all things, right? You have front end development, you have product design, you have data science, you have cybersecurity, you have animation, 3D, and all of that. Why did you pick backend development?
I think backend development picked me.
Okay. How did that
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah, it's funny, but I always have this philosophy of starting from somewhere. At the end of the day, your proposed plan sometimes or most times is not how you end up.
Mm-hmm.
You get so I studied computer science, but I didn't have interest in it. I'm not going to lie. While in school, I didn't do bad, yeah, but I was garbage in, garbage out for the
Akram,
yeah,
Lapo, La
yeah,
Forget.
just for the sake of not doing bad. I didn't
Okay.
do bad. So
Nice.
I got out of school. I served at Ebonyi. I served at Ebonyi. Also worked a bit there. So I served at Ebonyi. In Ebonyi, I was lucky enough to be part of a team that was working towards the tax automation. That was the first time I saw. That was the first time I saw software helping, like in real
Solving the
time.
problem.
Yeah, solving the problem. So we got consultants. I was immersed in it. So the chairman then saw my CV. Like, saw my result, computer science. Like, this one can be a tech guru. I didn't know shit though.
Can
so
imagine.
so he puts me as the agency's eyes in a
Because you
department.
studied
Yeah, because I
computer
studied
science.
computer science.
Okay.
So I was working hand in hand with these tech consultants that were building a solution for tax automation. So I'd be with them and I would see their backend guy would just be in one corner, tapping out people. Like, "Oof, this is a lot too. Like, what's this thing? Is this? Yeah. So I was like, what's this thing? I'm like, this is a lot, this is a lot. I'll go ask him. He told me it was Java, told me it was Java. Like whenever we had an issue on the platform, I'll drop messages. You see Indians responding. You see them talking code stuff and all that stuff. So it was really intriguing. So, but I didn't know what to do. Yeah, I admire people that had early mentorship or early guides or people that really weighed in to make sure they succeed at their career. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to learn. So the next thing was YouTube. So I stumbled on YouTube and I checked careers that come with the most money.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
checked careers that come with the most money within tech. I saw software development. I was seeing 180K per year then or $150K. Yeah, the money sometimes is the motivation.
All
So
right.
yeah, I checked that. So I decided software development. Yeah, so in software development, I checked again easiest languages or prominent languages, and I saw Python, then Python first. Some major blogs were saying Python first, then JavaScript. So I decided to learn Python. Well, I didn't know my learning curve or learning pattern, so I downloaded a Python book and I struggled with it for one full year. I think nothing came out of that thing. See, I was sleeping on that book. Nothing came out of that
Mm.
Python learning. So that was the first time I really got interested in tech. Or that was the first time tech piqued my interest.
Mm.
Yeah, after school, seeing real-time involvement. It's real-time involvement in daily lives.
So do we now say that when you're in school, there are no real life problems that catches students' attention, right? Because in school you're trying to write codes. I can remember because I studied statistics too,
Yeah.
and I know I did Fortran, I did QBasic, I did Python also, and sometimes we just even when they give us, okay, my school must not say this. Right. So when they give us like we are writing test, right, and you have a problem to solve, what we just do is that just write something. Just write the line of code, whatever.
Yeah.
If it runs, it doesn't run, just write something. That was the mentality most of us had, right? We never really wanted to solve a problem, or we're not looking at solving. We're not seeing them giving us um, task that solves real life problem. And
Yeah.
if I get you correctly, um, looking at your experience at Ebony, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah.
The fact that that software was solving a problem got you interested
It got me
beyond the
interested.
fact that you studied computer science and
Yeah.
you were tasked to be a licensed person, right? So my question is then this: I know some people some people started back end, but they didn't reach the back of the end, or they didn't reach the end of the back. Right? What made you stay true? How many years have you been in back end for? Right?
I think 2 years now.
Are you sure it's 2 years?
Two,
Josh, I think it's more than 2 years.
I think 2, 3 years, 3 years. Let's
Okay, are
just
you
say.
sure it's 3 years?
Yeah, I
You're,
think it
you're
is.
contemplating
Yeah, I think
three,
it
four
is.
years.
Actively.
Okay, actively.
Actively. Let's
3
just
years.
3 years.
3 years, amazing. 3 years would go back down to, let's say, COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
COVID. Okay. Did the
Yeah.
COVID affect your skills? Did it influence you getting?
COVID was the window. The world had stopped,
Hmm.
and it's like that bull run. People that notice it just put their head. So I think COVID gave me the time to not be pressured,
Hmm.
relax and learn.
Yeah.
That's what COVID did. So I came back home. I remember I took a break from work and I came back home. 2 days, there was not a lockdown.
Interesting.
So I was at home eating my mom's food and learning what I could learn. So back to the question, what made kept me true to backend? So I think I'll start from the point about school. So school didn't really pique my interest. I think possibly because it was all structured to pass exams. You
Hmm.
get me? It was all structured to pass exams. We did virtual basic, we did Fortran. One person really piqued my interest in school, and she taught us object-oriented programming with Java.
OP.
Yeah, so I was invested in that, but I didn't know that that could be more.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I was invested in it to pass my exams, but I didn't know it could be more. Like we did Java so much. God bless her, Malama Amina, wherever she is. Yeah, so she was so interested in us learning it. So we did OP, but I was so much interested in it, but I didn't know it could be more. I think that's one of the things that hindered us. Yeah, our lecturers didn't show us that it could be
Could be
more.
more.
Yeah, they just gave it to us to pass exams. So we did most. Okay, let me tell you an interesting story. So we're sitting for programming two, and in every question, okay, you know the usual exam question structure for exams, 6 answer 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in every question there was write a code or a programming language, write a code about something doing something. So I would answer everything that requires English, and I'll skip the part that requires programming. So, but there was one that we really couldn't skip, and it was the question was asking us to write a program about for an elevator that moves from ground floor to sixth floor and back. You get me? So
I
I
think I've
knew I
encountered
knew I
that
couldn't do
question.
it. So what I did was I sort of padded it. So I answered everything that could help my mark come up with that thing. So I turned around and I see my friend sharpening a pencil. I see my friend sharpening his pencil. So I look back at the question paper and there's nothing about drawing here. Why this nigga they sharpen pencil? So I see him sharpen his pencil and he draws. And I'm so confused. Am I doing something wrong?
Wrong.
Am I doing something
Maybe
wrong?
they asked you to design it.
Yeah. So after the whole thing, I asked him, bruh, what were you doing with pencil? I was like, hey, that compulsory question that he doesn't know how to write Java code. So he drew the elevator, six
Mad.
elevators with
Mad.
arrows from ground floor to sixth floor. Turn the arrow downwards. It's coming downwards
That's
again.
risky.
Yeah, no,
That's
he failed the
risky.
course. Like I
Okay.
think the lecturer was
All
so
right.
angry
Okay.
that
That because that's no
yeah.
way to go.
So you see, we didn't know what this thing was.
Okay.
We didn't know. So what kept me true to backend? I usually tell people to play around with a lot of things. Sometimes the best way to know yourself is to dabble into things. You can't just sit back in some in-depth self-evaluation and you're like, this is Joshua, not that guy. You can only know the limits, the weaknesses, the strengths of Joshua
When you're
when
attempting.
he's living, when he's attempting to live, when he's attempting life. So I tried backend. I was so lost in it. I'm not going. I tried Python. I was so lost in it. I didn't have the idea, so I wasn't getting my grip of it. So I tried. I decided to start from fresh. I was now doing more research and I go back to HTML, CSS. This was all on my own, no ideas, nothing. So I started HTML, CSS. Gee, like it's also obvious that it's also my thing. Yeah, I struggled with the basic
Wow.
how to float a button, how to make this responsive. Like I struggled with the basic. So I knew it wasn't my thing. So I moved to JavaScript or JS. I tried. That was my thing, but I wasn't really understanding it. So at that point, I was not yearning for some sort of mentorship, somebody that could say, okay, well, this is what it is. So I would go on Twitter and I would message guys that were talking about coding then. Like I would farm them, I would follow them, I would message them. So fortunately, one of them now jumped on a meeting with me one day and he helps me solve a problem. And I was like, bruh, this is it. So continuously I would message him. I think he got tired of me, so he just stepped back. I understood. Yeah, I really understood. So I came back to Kaduna one time and I remembered our mutual friend, Chad.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I remembered him and I was like, before I left Kaduna 2 years ago or some year ago, Gerard was doing something on the computer. So immediately I drove to his house and I was like, bruh, like I'm trying to build an e-commerce API with Node.js. This thing is not working. I am stuck here. So he looked at the code and he was like, Joshua, I don't know JavaScript too. But learn PHP, learn Laravel, I'll be able to help you. So I went outside and I called my sister. At this point, I was heartbroken. Am I going to start again? I tried Python, it wasn't my thing, guy. I tried graphic design too, it wasn't my thing. I tried
The
HTML,
evil
CSS.
man in you
Yeah,
was just
yeah,
exploring everything that will
guy.
bring
Like
out money.
I tried, it wasn't my thing. So I was really broken. Was am I going to start again? Like, will I have to start learning something again? So I called my sister and she was like, "Bruh, do what you have to do. This is the person you can see, and he's ready to throw in his weight to your personal development in this thing." So bro, I started learning PHP Laravel, and it became my thing. Gee, it became my thing in the shortest of time. Like he was also played a major role to that, so it became my thing. And you know when something is your thing, they wake you up.
Yeah.
You can
Vibe,
you
yeah.
can literally just start at it. So that's how it became my thing. So it was easy to be true to it because it was my thing. Yeah. It
Your
was,
thing,
yeah.
like you own PHP Laravel, or your thing like
My thing like my rib. My missing rib.
All
Yeah.
right. Do you think that all those learning journeys you had, learning Python, Java, C++, and all of that, influence your journey learning PHP and Laravel? Do you think that hard journey had built something in you to be able to take on PHP and Laravel?
Most definitely, because um, one thing I usually do is to understand the foundation, to
Okay.
understand the basic. So jumping on PHP, having prior knowledge on Python and JavaScript was yeah, like it gave me like smooth sailing.
Okay.
Yeah, like when I started writing my PHP code, then like Laravel code, Gerard would see it and he would say, "Guy, this is almost like you're writing this thing like JavaScript." Yeah, so
Mm.
yeah, it counted, like it made it make sense.
So if I am to act like a philosopher, right, I would say this, that every single thing you do in life, right, contributes to the success,
Yes,
right? So
yes,
you've learned something at a point, you've done something that did not work at some point, has a way that it contributes to your mindset for success, right? Good, 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 good. I'm too much, or you're too much, right? Yeah, great one, great one, great one. So I know that for some people listening, right, Joshua might have struggled with with what again now. I think JavaScript, right? Doesn't mean you
Python,
struggle with it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You might go on. You might now be struggling with PHP and Laravel that
yeah.
he found easy, right? So yeah. So I noticed while you were speaking that mentorship played a very important role in your tech journey, right? Probably maybe did not really play a strong role in your buying and selling because you're just risking everything, you know.
Mhm.
If you had dropped your laptop, okay, you dropped your laptop. If you had not gotten your laptop, you would have still moved on. Like,
Yeah.
okay, it's part of life and all of that, right? But I see that mentorship played a very good role in your back end journey, right? So I want to ask this quick question: have you ever mentored anybody in the tech space?
So I think they are the. I want to be very political with that answer, so I don't shoot myself. Yeah, I want to be very political. So I think there's the downside of mentorship, which is when a person pours their entire burden on you, they lose their own mind.
Sorry,
Yeah.
can you break that down for
Yeah,
me?
so I feel like the downside of mentorship is that people can now be lazy mentally. You get me? So they stumble on the challenge. You see, learning isn't easy as much as doing so isn't easy. And when it comes to software, like even when you are building, you're looking at a code, you're writing that same code, you would at times stumble on an error that the person you're watching didn't stumble upon. You get
Mm-hmm.
me? So the downside of mentorship is that, especially for people that are wholly dependent on it, is that it might make you mentally lazy. So for everything, you run. For
Mm.
everything, you run. You don't think, you run. You
Mm-hmm.
see an error, you don't think. I remember I've worked with people in the past where they were like, I faced a blocker, so I left
Rest
it. I
of
was
it.
like, let's look at it. Did you look at it?
Mm.
Let's look at it. So I'm in and out of mentorship because first, I don't feel like I've gotten to the point to really mentor somebody. Second is that um, I don't push people away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I wouldn't tell you
Mentoring
I'm not
you.
mentoring you, but come, let me set you on the path. But I need your mind to work.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
get me? So we'll be in and out of contact. You get me? I would make sure you are not overly dependent on me. You
Mm.
get? But I'll set you on the path. I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you what DevOps is. I'll tell you what backend is. I'll tell you what front end is. I'll give you the material. I won't put you on a job or okay, let's work together.
Mm-hmm.
But I will just make sure that I am sort of a beacon that you can look. Okay, when you fail at something, you're like, but Josh is at this level, so I
Mm-hmm.
can get there. You get me? So the downside of mentorship is I can make people lazy. So I make sure I don't just
You don't
give.
give them all.
Yeah, I don't give them all. You get me? So
Interesting.
I've not directly mentored people. Yeah,
Well, you've
but
indirectly mentored
yeah.
people. People have probably looked up to you and said, "Oh yeah, I want to be doing that thing that Josh is doing. That is making him, you know, be a baller. You
Yeah,
know, they don't want to
yeah.
be a mechanic no more."
It's actually crazy.
All
I
right.
think I'm facing that with my nephew. So my nephew is so much insistent on doing everything I do. So his mom was talking to him about studying medicine or doing engineering. I was like, nah, that thing that uncle always does on his computer, that English that he's always speaking,
You want?
that he wants to do it. That
Mm.
they tried. So she gave us, she was like, bro Joshua, this boy is all yours. So
Hmm.
you get so
Okay.
so it's quite crazy that I've mentorship sometimes isn't just direct. Do you know, my mom called me at some point and I was like, he really does tries to do everything as you do it. Not better, but he just
Does it sell
like,
gadgets?
no, not yet. Not yet. Not yet. But not
Okay.
yet. But he codes now and he's 14.
Wow. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Nice. This is really, really insightful. So I know that you've worked with startups, right? And in that journey, you might have experienced good things working with different teams, right? You must have experienced challenges working with several teams or startups, right? Do you mind sharing some of this experience?
Yeah. Almost startups can be crazy. Yeah, it can be really crazy. But I think it's a must. I feel, for my personal opinion, I feel it's a must partake for someone that really wants to grow. Yeah,
Mm.
the adrenaline is crazy. See, like,
Working with startups, right?
yeah, the adrenaline is crazy. They want it to be done fast. They don't care how you get it done. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do
Especially
it.
with the fact that in Nigeria currently, a lot of people just want to build startups. A
Yeah,
lot
a
of
lot
people are
of
just a
people.
lot
Yeah,
of people. You just
yeah,
see teams, yeah, they're working on
yeah,
it. Someone just calls you one day. Oh, there's this idea I have. I want.
yeah,
Can you jump on this? Right.
yeah.
So what has been the experiences?
Yeah, it's been good and bad, but it has contributed a lot to my journey because you have to learn fast. You have to, like, I remember I've spoken with a friend that works for one of the unicorns in Nigeria, and he tell me his schedule. Like, when I see things he does in a week, I'll just be laughing. This can't happen in a startup. See, we're building the whole system in 1 week. Yeah, like, your boss is saying, put this together, and you get. So the adrenaline is crazy, but it keeps you on your toes. That's one. It really does keep you on your toes. Yeah, it keeps you on your toes. And if you're someone that's committed to work, you will do the work.
Hmm.
Like, you would do the work. Like, there's real work to be done. Your mind would work. Like, you think at a pace that you didn't think you could. You get me? So I think it's a must participate or must partake. Partake.
For every
Yeah.
young person.
Like, the best thing that can now happen to you in a startup is when you now work with someone that is invested in your own development. So imagine, I think that's one of the things that really just pushed me right.
Hmm.
So imagine working for a startup with that much adrenaline, then working under someone that's not invested in your growth. The adrenaline plus the positive investment they are pouring on you guys to just set you right. But the other thing, the other problem with startup is chaos. Sometimes um, there's no organization. Things are really just being done anyhow. You
Hmm.
get, so just so much chaos, so much chaos. So at the end of the day, they would run in that chaos until they've exhausted themselves, then they would shut down.
Hmm.
You get me?
Hmm.
So whenever I'm put at the helm of decision making, like, I try to wet down the chaos, like to water it down a little
Mhm.
bit. So the adrenaline is great, but
Let's build structure
let's build
also.
structure. Let's
Hmm.
build structure.
Interesting.
Yeah, because you keep pouring on a bad foundation, you keep pouring, one day the whole building collapses on you. You get me? So then another thing is that it's not everything that needs to be, it's not everything that needs to be innovated.
Yeah, you could just replicate the
Yeah,
same.
it's not everything that needs to be innovated. Sometimes some ideas don't need to be ideated. Sometimes just,
Re-engineered.
yeah, they don't need to be re-engineered. You get me? So
So if they don't need to be re-engineered, what do they need to be?
yeah, just leave it.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes just leave it. Sometimes people feel like they are building for this, they are building for it, they are building for this. At the end of the day, see, that's the thing about startups. When you have an idea, you check the market for it, you
Mhm.
check the integration for it, you check the local penetration. Guy, there are times that a country will go ahead of its people. So the
Mhm.
people are probably in 2000s, and
Mm.
the country is in 2023. So the country is waiting for the people to catch up.
Yeah.
You get me? So there's some ideas that is ahead of its time,
Mm.
and some that is behind its time. You get me?
Interesting.
Yeah. So you build things that really don't have local penetration, and
Interesting.
at the end of the day, you've just exhausted resources.
Interesting. Interesting. I think at the beginning of this year, I listened to a podcast like that where Ian Aboyeji, one of the top
Yeah.
tech bros in Nigeria, in Africa, right? You can say he was talking about his experience building Andela and building Florida, right? And even going down to building Future Africa, right? And if there's one thing I really took from that conversation, like what you just said, is understanding the market, right?
Yeah.
The first solution they brought in before Andela, right? Nigeria was not really ready for
Ready
that
for
product.
it, yeah.
So at that point, and this product was something that was working in Canada,
Yeah.
but Nigeria was not ready for the product at that point, and they had to, switch fast, right? I think one of the things he said that, one of the investors he was speaking with said, if you can drop this and focus on this one, right, which was the talent outsourcing, right?
Yeah.
You can focus on this. I'll be ready to invest. And he just shared this with his team, and instantly they jumped on it,
Yeah.
and that better than Della, right?
Yeah.
So I think you've answered the other question I wanted to ask, which is, but whilst we round up, right? Two things I want us to just quickly talk about is, so what's your biggest achievement over these 3 years that you have been in the backend space?
My biggest achievement.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Okay.
That's
Let me give
hard.
you some seconds to think about it.
That's hard. That's hard. I think first is starting backend. I think that's my biggest achievement because, like Portable, you say every year is my year. I'm not man of this year.
Okay.
Every year is
Every
my
year
year.
is your
Every
year.
year is my year. You get me? So overall, right now, guys, sometimes I just think about not starting. Like all like would have been like what have been the outcome by now. So
Yeah.
I think my biggest achievement was not letting go, like starting and keeping at it. Like I had every excuse. Like, it wasn't working out. It wasn't. But I still had the job. You get me? I was still pandering. I was still padding with my job. I was still padding with my business. But the biggest achievement in my back end journey is just starting it, guy. There's still more to come. So I started it, and started it has bet everything beautiful that has come after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So the final one is, how do you learn?
There's a scattered plot behind that.
Scattered plot.
There's actually a scattered plot.
Okay.
But when it comes to business,
Okay.
when it comes to business, I don't take that risk I used to take before. I just jump into things.
Okay.
So when it comes to business, I understudy.
Okay.
Like I find somebody
Okay.
and I go under the person.
Okay.
You get me? For car business, there are people that gave birth to me in the car business.
Okay. Nice.
At some point, even in the phone business, I noticed I was working alone. I came back. I looked for somebody that was a senior man, and I understudied under him. You get me? They'll give you a lot of cover. First is you have access to their products.
True.
Yeah. So theirs become yours. You sell. You get me. It's also is that people will be able to connect you to that name, and especially when it's a big name, your name actually now grows. So it's a big name. Okay, it's Joshua. Give him this amount. Nah, he's associated to this big name. You get me? So for business, I understudy. I go under somebody. Like no matter how much capital I have more capital than the person, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's not even the money that bets the money, it's the knowledge, it's the experience you get.
It's not the money that bets the money,
yeah.
it's the knowledge.
Yes.
Okay.
So you put
Joshua 2024.
so you put money into things that you have no idea of. Yeah, 40, 100, it would finish up. People will wreck you. You get. So for business, I understudy. Then for tech, I actively learn and do. You get me? So starting off, we're learning everything. At the point you learn so much that you now know nothing. You get? So you learn so much that you now know nothing because you're not learning and doing. You're just learning. I just want to be ripe for a
Just
job.
packing it up.
You're just packing it up. So at this point in my journey, I think I learn and do. So I learn what is necessary and I actively use it. Because if I don't learn and do, it doesn't stick. You get me? So it doesn't stick. So I actively learn and I do. Like if I'm learning a tack, a stack is something I'm using like right away. I'm not learning because everybody is shouting about it, shouting about it, except I want to move into it fully. So I actively learn and do. Like I'm watching a video, I'm building something for myself as I'm watching it. I'm reading and I'm building something. I'm learning. I remember when I was trying to make an algorithm better and I started learning time complexity. Gets me. So I was learning and I was doing the big annotation and all that, and I was looking at the algorithm and I was saying, oh, this is eating a lot of time. Let's take it out. Let's make it better. Let's make it better. You get. So business I understudy, tech I learn and do.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So if you were to say anything that would inspire anyone who wants to get into the back-end space, right? What will you tell the person? The person is just thinking, oh, I want to get into tech, right? And this back-end thing, should I do back-end, right? And you notice, right? Like personally, I just noticed, right? When you see training, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Before you see back-end, you would have seen like 10 front end,
yeah.
right? So, but I will not go into why that is, but
Yeah.
if you were to encourage someone who wants to get into backend, what would you tell the person?
First is they are all as hard. That's one. Like I try to there's this knowledge that back end I'm more technically grounded, I know more code, I'm better than the front end guy. That's a lie, yo. See, they are all as hard. Front end, when you choose excellence, you understand why it's hard. When you decide to be excellent in it, you understand that front end is hard, back end is hard. But why I like back end is that it matches my personality. It doesn't put me in the spotlight, so I'm just behind making things work. Yeah, so it matches my personality. So when we're building a product, you first ask, who did the front end? Before you ask, who did it? Sometimes you don't even know if there's a back end. You don't even ask, you get me? So I enjoy that. Like, don't know me, don't ask of me, don't put me on the spotlight. Let me just get to work and get things done. You get me? So if you like that, do the back end. Secondly, if you have challenge, like I had challenge with design, like I can't put colors together. I don't even know what colors are like. So
design colors are not your thing.
Yeah, they are not my thing. They are putting structures together are not my thing.
Even though you learn graphic design.
Yeah, bro, work. Work. It's just torture. You get me? So, but backend isn't torture for me, guys. It isn't torture. Like I am triggered by learning how a process works. Like the code that bets a process from the beginning to the end. Like I'm triggered by it, and I don't need to make it pretty for the eyes. I just need to make it work, make it fast, make it better. I don't need to make it bounce, make the animation. Just hit the request and get the resource. That's all. So it matches my personality. Yeah, so that's why.
Nice. I believe this session has been really, really informative, right? And here's what I have to say, right? You need mentorship, right? But beyond needing mentorship, you must also understand that mentorship doesn't mean you have to lean completely on the person who is your mentor, right? Because mentors appreciate people who are proactive, right? So before you come to meet me that, oh, this stuff is not working, you probably might have gone through it over and, just to see what the possible problems are. And also, in fact, I think I forgot this. Most times when people learn code, some people don't learn to read the errors. So the moment I just try to run stuff and I just see red, I think, oh, trouble.
I think I got past that stage. So when I see error, I just start panicking. So I now had to remind myself, look at it, like read it. So when I'm working with a group of people, like I've worked with a boy that panicked for a whole day. He didn't report back to me what he found, didn't report if he succeeded. So when I reached out to him, what happened? He was like, I hit an error. I was like, okay, did you look at it? What's the error? I was like, no, he hasn't. He's still going around.
Is it because error messages comes out as red?
So,
because I think it has a lot to do with that mind, right? Because when you just see red, this is problem.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
and
yes.
You don't read. In fact, what might be the problem might just be.
It's a tiny thing.
Might just be a tiny thing.
At the end of the day, I was like, okay, let's read it. I was on the phone, I was driving, I was like, let's read it. And he read it out. I was like, okay, there's the line. They said line number this good here. What did he say back? This is required. Simple. Just put it there.
Try it again.
Try it again. It works. That was all. So people, there's a whole fear. There's a fear of failure. There's a fear of being challenged. There's all that. So you have to remind yourself that I'm great at this. So read it.
Yeah, interesting. Let's just end this conversation here, right?
Yeah.
So my quick request, right, for everyone who is listening: do well to subscribe, do well to like, and do well, most importantly, to share with your friends, your families, your enemies, anybody, right? Because technology is solving problems, right? Technology is being used to solve problems. And you want your neighbors to solve problems, you want your family to solve problems, you want your siblings to solve problems, leveraging technology or creativity. So yeah, thank you for your time, thank you for listening. And as you do this, I can promise you one thing, right? That for every episode that we shoot, right, is going to be very, very powerful and impactful. Thank you so much for listening.